Throughout history, certain individuals have left a dark mark with their heinous crimes, chilling the hearts of many. The tenacity, cunning, and sheer brutality of their acts have both horrified and captivated people globally. This video delves into the twisted lives of some of the most dangerous convicts ever known, starting with the notorious Ted Bundy. Number 1. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy's name is synonymous with the embodiment of evil. From the outside, he was the antithesis of a cold-blooded killer, a well-spoken, charismatic, and intelligent man who had a bright future in politics. But beneath this facade lay a deeply disturbed individual, with a capacity for violence that few could fathom. Bundy's criminal activities began in the late 1960s but peaked in the mid-70s. His modus operandi involved luring female victims with his charm or feigning injury, only to overpower them, take them to secluded locations, and brutally end their lives. Not only was he a murderer, but Bundy was also a necrophiliac, often returning to the scenes of his crimes to engage in unspeakable acts with the bodies of his deceased victims. One of the most chilling aspects of Bundy's crimes was his ability to change his appearance effortlessly, making it hard for authorities to pin him down. This uncanny ability to morph into different personas, combined with his charm, made him a master manipulator, capable of not only attracting his victims but also deceiving the police and even escaping from custody. His capture in Florida marked the end of his reign of terror. Bundy's trial was a media circus, as the world saw a confident man representing himself in court, often challenging the prosecution and seemingly enjoying the spotlight. His charm, however, could not save him from the weight of the evidence. The trial showcased bite mark evidence, one of the first instances of this type of forensic evidence being used in a major trial, which played a pivotal role in his conviction. In total, Bundy confessed to the murders of 30 young women, although the true number remains unknown, with some estimates suggesting it could be much higher. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair, leaving behind a legacy of terror that would ensure his place in infamy. Today, his name serves as a grim reminder that monsters can sometimes wear the most unassuming faces. Number 2. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. Gary Ridgway's insidious acts earn him a grim spot in the annals of criminal history. Known as the Green River Killer, his crimes extended over nearly 2 decades, resulting in the deaths of numerous women in the Seattle, Washington area. What sets Ridgway apart from many other serial killers is not just the sheer number of his victims, but also his methodical approach to evading capture for such an extended period. From the early 1980s until his arrest in 2001, Ridgway preyed primarily on young women, many of whom were runaways or involved in prostitution. He would often approach them with an offer, luring them to his vehicle. Once they were within his grasp, Ridgway would strangle them, usually by hand, demonstrating a chilling personal touch to his atrocities. After the murders, he would frequently return to the dump sites to engage in necrophiliac acts with the bodies. Ridgway's ability to blend into society greatly aided his evasion from the law. He held a steady job painting trucks and was seen by many as a relatively ordinary man, albeit with a few quirks. His marriages and relationships often hinted at his darker side, with partners describing him as having an insatiable sexual appetite, paired with a violent streak. The pivotal break in the case came nearly 2 decades after the first murder. With the advent of more sophisticated DNA testing techniques in the early 2000s, the samples collected from the crime scenes in the 80s were reanalyzed. The results pointed to a single individual, Gary Ridgway. He was arrested in 2001 and, faced with the mounting evidence against him, began confessing to his crimes. His confessions were cold, methodical, and void of emotion. He spoke of his victims not as humans, but as mere numbers. The plea deal that spared him the death penalty required him to reveal the locations of still missing women, leading to a gruesome tour of the killing fields where he had dumped their bodies. In the end, Ridgway was convicted of 49 murders, but he confessed to killing 71, and some estimates suggest the real number could be even higher. Serving a life sentence without parole, Gary Ridgway stands as one of America's most prolific serial killers. His reign of terror is a harrowing testament to the depths of human depravity and a cautionary tale about the monsters that can lurk beneath a veneer of normalcy. Number 3. Pedro Lopez, the monster of the Andes. In the world of criminal infamy, few names evoke as much dread as Pedro Lopez. Hailing from Colombia, Lopez is believed to be one of the most prolific serial killers in recorded history. Dubbed the Monster of the Andes, his crimes stretched across multiple countries in South America, with his victims predominantly being young, vulnerable girls. Born in 1948 in Tolima, Colombia, Lopez's early life was marred by violence and hardship. He was kicked out of his home at a young age after his mother caught him fondling his younger sister. This expulsion led him to a life on the streets, where he was subsequently abducted and repeatedly abused. The traumatic events of his early life are often cited as potential triggers for his later heinous acts. By the early 1970s, Lopez's dark urges had manifested into a pattern of rape and murder. He would lure young girls away from markets or rural villages, promising trinkets or small tokens. Once isolated, he would commit his unspeakable acts, ending the lives of his victims and then burying their bodies in hidden graves. Lopez's methodology was chilling in its efficiency, often targeting regions where local law enforcement was lax or non-existent. It wasn't until 1980 when Lopez's reign of terror was finally halted. In an Ecuadorian market, a vendor noticed him attempting to lure away a young girl, and remembering the string of recent disappearances, raised the alarm. Lopez was apprehended and handed over to the police. Initially, the full scope of his crimes seemed incomprehensible. But when the police began discovering mass graves corresponding to Lopez's confessions, the grim reality became clear. Shockingly, due to Ecuador's legal system at the time, Lopez received the maximum sentence of only 16 years in prison, the maximum for any crime in Ecuador at that period. After serving just 14 years, he was released on good behavior in 1994, only to be deported to Colombia, where he was institutionalized for his crimes there. Pedro Lopez's legacy is one of unfathomable cruelty. He preyed on the most vulnerable, leaving behind a trail of sorrow that spans across countries. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the depth of human malevolence and the importance of international cooperation in bringing such criminals to justice. Number 4. Aileen Wuornos. Often branded as America's most notorious female serial killer, was a stark departure from the prototypical image of a serial killer. Her story is fraught with abuse, desperation, and rage, culminating in a series of murders that would captivate and horrify the nation. Unlike many of her infamous counterparts, Wuornos did not kill from a place of sadistic pleasure, but rather from what she perceived as a need for survival and retaliation against a world that had relentlessly abused her. Born in 1956 in Michigan, Wuornos's early life was a tableau of hardship and trauma. Abandoned by her teenage mother, she never knew her father, who was imprisoned for child molestation and eventually committed suicide in jail. Raised by her grandparents, she faced physical and sexual abuse, and by age 15, after the death of her grandmother, she was left to fend for herself, leading to a life of transient homelessness and prostitution. The narrative of Wuornos's crimes began in Florida in 1989. Over the span of a year, 7 men who had solicited her for sex met their end at her hands. The method was consistent, a close-range gunshot. Wuornos, a prostitute, maintained that these killings were out of self-defense, asserting that each man had either raped her or attempted to rape her while she was working Florida's highways. The nature of her crimes, paired with the growing public intrigue surrounding female perpetrators, drew an immediate media spotlight. Here was a woman typically seen as a victim in society, turning the tables on male aggressors. However, the narrative was more complex than a mere avenging vigilante. Wuornos exhibited signs of deep-seated psychological issues, possibly stemming from her tumultuous upbringing and the trauma she endured on the streets. Convicted on 6 counts of first-degree murder, Wuornos was sentenced to death. During her time on death row, she began exhibiting erratic behavior, sometimes expressing a desire for death and at other times claiming innocence. Her story became the subject of numerous documentaries, movies, and debates. with many questioning the ethics of executing a person with such evident mental health issues. Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection in 2002. Her life and crimes are reflective of the darker corners of society, where abuse and neglect can culminate in unimaginable violence. Her legacy is a poignant reminder of the consequences of systemic failures and the blurred lines between victim and perpetrator. Number 5. Andrei Chikatilo, the Butcher of Rostov. Among the pantheon of the world's most heinous serial killers, the name Andrei Chikatilo casts a particularly haunting shadow. Known as the Butcher of Rostov or the Red Ripper, Chikatilo's crimes were marked not just by their number, but by their extreme brutality and the perverse motivations that drove him. Born in 1936 in Ukraine, then a part of the Soviet Union, Chikatilo's early life was tainted by the horrors of famine and war. He grew up hearing stories of cannibalism during the Great Ukrainian Famine, and as a young boy he was told his older brother had been kidnapped and eaten by starving neighbors. This unsettling backdrop may have been the foundation for the nightmares he would later unleash on his victims. Chikatilo's dark journey began in the late 1970s. Over the next 12 years, he would claim the lives of more than 50 people, with victims ranging from young children to women and occasionally men. He would lure them into secluded areas, such as forests or train stations, and then unleash a fury of violence upon them. But Chikatilo derived pleasure not from the act itself, but from the violence, often mutilating his victims in unspeakable ways. Despite the growing body count, Chikatilo eluded capture for years. The Soviet authorities were hesitant to admit the existence of a serial killer, a concept they associated with the decadence of the West. Moreover, investigative techniques were outdated, and several innocent men were arrested and even executed for Chikatilo's crimes. The sheer savagery of Chikatilo's acts painted a portrait of a man deeply at odds with himself. He expressed self-loathing for his impotence and described his murders as a way to achieve a sense of power and dominance. The psychological evaluations pointed to a complex web of paranoia, chronic impotence, and a deep-seated rage against society. After a lengthy trial, during which the depth of his depravity was laid bare for the world to see, Chikatilo's legacy is a dark chapter in the annals of crime. His story is emblematic of the dangers that can arise when societal taboos, flawed investigations, and a disturbed psyche converge. In the end, the Butcher of Rostov serves as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity and the monsters that can hide in plain sight. Number 6. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. In the mid-1980s, a specter of terror loomed over Southern California, evoking fear in the hearts of its residents. This dread was attributed to a string of brutal home invasion crimes that seemed random in nature, but were united by their sheer brutality and the signature of satanic symbols left behind. The man responsible was Richard Ramirez, who would go down in infamy as the Night Stalker. Born in 1960 in El Paso, Texas, Ramirez had a troubled upbringing. Exposed to a blend of violence, drug abuse, and alleged ritualistic practices from a young age, his descent into darkness seemed almost inevitable. By the early 1980s, he had migrated to California and gradually began his crime spree. Ramirez's modus operandi was particularly chilling due to its unpredictability. There seemed to be no consistent pattern in terms of victim selection. Men, women, and even children fell prey to his cruelty. Breaking into homes under the veil of night, he committed a series of robberies. His victims often woke up to the horrifying realization of a stranger in their midst, their last moments marked by terror. It was a combination of forensic evidence, including fingerprints and public vigilance, that finally led to Ramirez's capture. In August 1985, Ramirez was identified and his photo was released to the public. Recognized by residents in East Los Angeles, he was chased down and captured by a group of civilians who held him until the police arrived. The subsequent trial was a media circus. Richard Ramirez, with his long hair, gaunt features, and penchant for dark sunglasses, became an eerie figure in the public imagination. Throughout the trial, he frequently flaunted his satanic affiliations, at one point even yelling "Hail Satan" in the courtroom. He would never face execution, however, dying in prison in 2013 from complications related to B-cell lymphoma. Richard Ramirez's reign as the Night Stalker is a grim reminder of the unpredictability of evil. His crimes were not only acts of violence but also psychological warfare, casting a long shadow of fear that would be remembered for decades to come. Number 7. John Wayne Gacy, the Killer Clown. Among the annals of American serial killers, John Wayne Gacy occupies a uniquely horrifying niche. Portraying himself as a community-spirited man, Gacy's double life as the Killer Clown presents a terrifying duality. A public figure admired by many, juxtaposed with a monster who preyed on the vulnerable. Born in 1942 in Chicago, Gacy faced a tumultuous childhood marked by abuse at the hands of his alcoholic father. Yet by the 1970s, he had seemingly overcome his difficult past to become a successful businessman, community volunteer, and active member of the Democratic Party in Chicago. He even performed at children's hospital events and birthday parties as Pogo the Clown. But beneath this facade of normalcy, a chilling narrative was unfolding. Starting in the late 1960s, Gacy lured young boys and young men with promises of work, money, or simply by impersonating a police officer. Once they were in his grasp, he would overpower them. It was in December 1978 that Gacy's dark world began to unravel. When 15-year-old Robert Peast went missing after reportedly going for a job interview with Gacy, the police initiated a search that led them to his suburban home. The discovery they made there was beyond macabre. Beneath the house lay the remains of multiple young men, buried in a makeshift graveyard. As the investigation progressed, more bodies were discovered in nearby rivers, all leading to a grim count of 33 victims. But the evidence was overwhelming. He would spend 14 years on death row, often giving interviews and making artwork that further fueled the public's morbid fascination. In 1994, he was executed by lethal injection. Gacy's legacy is a testament to the harrowing reality that monsters can hide behind the most ordinary facades. His dual life as a community leader and a brutal killer forces a confrontation with the uncomfortable truth that evil can reside in plain sight, masked by the trappings of normalcy. The Killer Clown remains a stark symbol of the darkest aspects of human nature, lurking beneath the surface. Number 8. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal. Jeffrey Dahmer, often dubbed the Milwaukee Cannibal or the Milwaukee Monster, stands out as one of the most psychologically perplexing and disturbing figures in the history of crime. His gruesome acts not only involved murder but also necrophilia and cannibalism. Dahmer's descent into this dark abyss challenges our understanding of human capacity for evil. Born in 1960 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Dahmer's early life gave some indications of his later obsessions. As a child, he was fascinated by dead animals, often collecting and dissecting them. This macabre curiosity would evolve into something far more sinister in his adulthood. Dahmer typically lured young men to his apartment with promises of money or alcohol. Once there, his victims were drugged, strangled, and then subjected to post-mortem rituals. Disturbingly, he often kept souvenirs, like skulls or photographs of the dismembered bodies. In some cases, driven by a twisted desire for companionship, he attempted to create zombies by injecting acid into his victims' brains. Dahmer's acts took an even darker turn with cannibalism. He confessed to consuming parts of his victims, a gruesome act he believed would allow him to absorb their essence and keep them with him forever. This horrifying detail earned him the moniker, the Milwaukee Cannibal. His reign of terror came to an end in 1991, when a potential victim managed to escape and alert the police. A subsequent search of Dahmer's apartment revealed a house of horrors, photographs of mutilated bodies, remains in the refrigerator, and a barrel containing acid with decomposing bodies. In 1992, Dahmer was sentenced to 16 life terms in prison. However, his incarceration would be short-lived. Jeffrey Dahmer's legacy is a chilling exploration of the human psyche's darkest corners. His crimes challenge our understanding of morality, pushing the boundaries of what we believe is humanly possible. The Milwaukee Cannibal serves as a grim reminder of the depths of depravity, raising unsettling questions about nature, nurture, and the thin line between sanity and madness. Number 9. Alexander Pichushkin, the Chessboard Killer. While the Cold War raged and the world's eyes were often on the grand chess game between superpowers, in the shadows of Moscow's parks, a different kind of game was afoot, orchestrated by a man whose ambitions were macabre and horrifying. Alexander Pichushkin, later infamously dubbed the chessboard killer, embarked on a twisted mission to commit as many murders as there are squares on a chessboard. Born in 1974 in Mytishchi, Moscow Oblast, Pichushkin's childhood hinted at the darkness that lay ahead. Bullied as a child and described as a loner, the genesis of his crimes can be traced back to a statement made by his grandfather, that to be a real man, one had to do something grand, something that would ensure his name would never be forgotten. His nickname, the chessboard killer, arose from his gruesome ambition. He even kept a board at home, marking off each square as a kill was achieved. Pichushkin's capture in 2006 was almost serendipitous. A note in her possession pointed to a meeting with him. He seemed to take perverse pride in his actions, detailing each with chilling precision. The trial that followed was nothing short of sensational. Presented to the court were graphic videos of crime scenes and Pichushkin's calm confessions. The public watched in horrified fascination, though only 48 were confirmed. In 2007, Alexander Pichushkin was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, with the first 15 years to be spent in solitary confinement. His reason for killing, he once mentioned, was not out of hatred or revenge, but for the sheer thrill of it. Pichushkin's story serves as a disturbing testament to the depths of human depravity. While many serial killers are driven by complex motivations, Pichushkin's desire was terrifyingly simple. A game, a number, a cold and methodical tally of lives taken, each a step towards a macabre goal that will forever mark him as one of history's most chilling killers. Number 10. Yang Xinhai, the monster killer. When we think of serial killers, Western names often dominate the discourse. However, the dark tapestry of such crimes stretches across the globe. One of the most prolific serial killers hailed from China, Yang Xinhai, chillingly referred to as the monster killer. Between 1999 and 2003, he wrought havoc across 4 provinces. Born in 1968 in Zhengyang County, Henan, Yang's early life was marred by frequent brushes with the law. His first incarceration was for theft in 1988. By the time he was released in 1999, his criminal inclinations had taken a darker, more violent turn. What made Yang's crimes even more alarming was the sheer randomness of his targets. There appeared to be no pattern, no specific victim profile, rendering every household vulnerable. This unpredictability heightened the climate of fear, casting a pall over rural China. The motive behind Yang's gruesome acts was a toxic mix of resentment and thrill-seeking. He reportedly harbored deep anger towards society, stemming from perceived slights and rejections, especially by women. His reign of terror was brought to an end in 2003. Captured at an entertainment venue, Yang's subsequent confession was bone-chilling in its candor. His demeanor during these confessions was eerily calm, showing little to no remorse for his actions. During his trial, the sheer magnitude of his crimes ensured that it became a focal point of national attention. It was a case that challenged the judicial and moral fabric of China, leading to intense discussions about crime, punishment, and the nature of evil. The monster killer remains a grim testament to the universality of evil. Yang Xinhai's story is a reminder that the darkest corners of the human psyche are not constrained by geography or culture. Across continents, societies grapple with the same haunting question. How can an individual be capable of such profound malevolence?